Hey guys, it's your girl Abriah, Serenity. I'm back at you with another prophetic word, another prophetic dream. Now this dream the Lord gave me January 18, 2024 between the hours of 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So in this dream, he showed me two very famous actors that were very popular in the 80s and the 90s, whose identities I will reveal later because they are symbolic. And in this dream, they were married to each other even though they've never been married in real life. And in this dream, the husband was having an affair, and the affair was a very big deal in this dream. Like it was a very big deal. Like a lot of people were very angry and very upset that this man had cheated on his wife. Not only did they realize that he cheated on his wife, the Lord had revealed to a lot of people that this man was indeed a psychopath. And people were like, oh my goodness, not only is he having an affair, but he's a psychopath. All of a sudden, the Lord revealed to these people as well that this man was a threat and that he was going to kill his wife. And so people began to panic and reach out to his wife. And the man also began to realize that people were catching on to him and what he was trying to do. So this man did not kill his wife himself. He put a hit out on her. Okay, so we're going to get to that. Stay with me. So the people who have gotten all these revelations via the Holy Spirit and also finding out the truth in other ways, they begin to call his wife. They find a phone and they are blowing this lady's phone up, but this lady is not answering and she cannot be reached. Calling over and over. They're like, please pick up. They are texting her. She's not answering the phone. It did not show if they actually had a connection, but they just were able to get a hold of her information, and they were trying to call her and warn her about the dangers of her husband and what he was planning to do to her so that she can run, so that she can get away, so that she can get far away from him. But the husband was not dumb enough to kill his wife, knowing that people were beginning to catch on to him being an adulterer, catching on to him having this affair, because if she died, they would know. They would tie it right back to him because he was cheating, right? And they would say, oh, his motive was that he was having an affair, so he killed her. But instead, he hired a foreign enemy to take her out. These people were a gang or some type of cartel from another nation that he reached out to take his wife out. Like, he paid them to murder his wife. So the husband eventually gets to his wife. She doesn't know any of the things that these people know. She hasn't looked at her phone. She hasn't been by her phone. And so when she sees him, she's completely happy to see him. She's not even aware that this man is evil. She's not even aware that this man has put a hit out on her. And she's kind of just kissing on him and loving on him as if everything is normal. All of a sudden, he leaves the house. And when he leaves the house, that's when the cartel comes and takes her out. When these foreign enemies take her out, they just make sure it's quick. In the dream, I wasn't even shown how she died. I just know that she was completely compromised and that she was declared dead. But the thing is that after they got done taking out the wife, they spun the block for the husband. They came back for the husband to kill him because they were feeling some type of way about what he did to his wife. Even though they were complicit and took the money and it did what they asked, they still came back and said, nah, we're gonna deal with you. And they ended up murdering the husband too. And so when they murdered the husband, they kidnapped him and they tormented him and tortured him and made sure he died a very slow and painful death. And then I woke up from that dream. So the two actors that the Lord used in my dream were Sally Field and Mel Gibson. Now, Sally, I was able to identify her because I recognized her from Steel Magnolias, Mrs. Doubtfire, and also the Spider-Man movies that she did in recent years. But again, this was the younger version of her. And also when I looked up Sally, I saw a lot of the movies that she was in throughout her life. And a lot of these movies were like all-American movies. And I looked up the meaning of the name Sally, and it means princess. Okay, so remember that Sally means princess, and it also originated from the name Sarah. So Sally was an all-American princess. She represents America, and she also represents a nation that was set apart. The male actor, it took me some time to find his name because in the dream, he was the younger version of himself and not the older version of himself. So when I originally looked up Mel Gibson, after I woke up, I saw a picture of him. I'm like, no, that can't be him. But I didn't look up pictures of him when he was young. So when I saw younger pictures of him, I said, okay, yeah, that's him. When I looked up the name meaning of Mel, it said that it was short for Melvin. That means friend of counsel. Okay, so that's not a coincidence. And also remember that Melech means king in Hebrew, so it's short for king as well, and in America it means friend of counsel. I'm gonna run it back for those of you if it went over your head. So Sally represents America. Okay, Sally is an all-American princess. She is the heart of a nation because princesses are often referred to as the heart of a nation. She also represents a covenant people, a nation that has been set apart. She can also represent ideals and core values of the nation. So for example, justice, freedom, and morality, things that are completely under attack right now. Mel Gibson, which is the husband, represents false leadership, corrupt politician. The husband represents betrayal and psychopathy. He also represents leadership positions in politics, whether relational or spiritual, that has become morally corrupt. He represents internal enemy, false leadership, and internal corruption. Name means friend of counsel. Melech in Hebrew means king. So he represents somebody who is in a high position of power, or who is friends with people who are in high positions of power, and they themselves are seen as a king. So this person has a lot of power, and they are friends with other people who are in high positions of power. Also remember that Sally's last name is Field, so American princess, and her last name represents cherished territories within the United States. The affair represents betrayal of a nation. People who are trying to warn Sally about her husband represent prophets. They represent people who know the truth, who are trying to warn America about what the person is doing. They represent people who know the truth, whether it's because God gave them revelation, or because they've been studying history enough to know exactly what's going on, or they just know things because of other people around them are talking. Represent spiritual intervention. People who are trying to prevent the death of America. Prophets and other people not being able to get through to Sally just lets us know how hard America is to reach, how prideful we are as a nation, or how distracted we are. These people represent people who are warning about incoming danger, and intercessors that are unable to prevent consequences. They represent the warning before the judgment. The foreigners in this dream that the husband used to execute his wife represent foreign allies. Sally represents America and the cherished territories. She represents naivety and foolishness in trusting her enemy to protect her and not the Lord. Sally's death symbolizes the fall of something cherished or ideal. Righteousness and innocence being destroyed due to internal betrayal. Because Sally was in a place where she could not be reached, or was distracted and unable to receive warnings from the people that had the truth she needed, she was not able to protect herself. This could represent pride, ignorance, or blindness, being too far gone to listen, which led to her compromise and her total death. People trying to warn Sally about her husband represents the prophets and people who know the truth. People who are trying to spiritually intervene and intercede for America. The people who are warning about incoming danger, and people who are not listening. In the dream, Sally was so distracted by Mel Gibson, she was not anywhere near her phone, and so she was never able to receive the warnings that she needed. So the consequences of her being distracted and not being reachable resulted in her death. The husband represents betrayal and psychopathy, leadership positions, whether, like I said, political, relational, or spiritual, that have become morally corrupt, leading to the betrayal of what they were supposed to protect. This person represents an internal enemy, a position of false leadership, someone who should be protecting the fort but instead orchestrates its downfall. This also represents leaders turning against the principles they were meant to uphold. A leader of this nation that uses foreign enemies to kill or compromise the heart of this nation. One thing that came to my mind was the Capitol. Now, last year I had a dream at the beginning of January 2024 of the Capitol being flooded by the river Euphrates. Now, it didn't make sense to a lot of people because they're like, the river Euphrates is not in the United States, because people don't understand symbolism and people just lack comprehension. They didn't pay attention to the countries that surrounded the river Euphrates. So go back and watch that dream if you haven't watched it already. Leader of this nation that uses a foreign enemy to kill or compromise the heart of this nation, the Capitol, cherished territories in the US, the political system, and God's people within the nation. So I also heard persecution. So persecution is coming to believers because of this internal betrayal. This leader used a foreign enemy in order to avoid consequences, avoid prison, conviction, and to maintain the appearance and position without it being traced back to them. I kept hearing treason. The affair in this dream represents an agreement, alliance with a foreign enemy, ungodly forces, specific alliances with a nation that doesn't acknowledge God or Jesus, Antichrist nation. Isaiah 31 verse 1, it says, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help and rely on horses, but do not look to the Holy One of Israel." Seeking external help leads to vulnerability and destruction. Lord kept saying to me that the betrayal is internal, and our alliance with this wicked nation will lead to consequences. By forming this alliance, he brought judgment on himself. Even though the foreign enemy was complicit in Sally, America's murder, they ultimately execute the betrayal. They did not like how he betrayed Sally and made sure he had a very slow and painful death. If you were willing to use us to bring down Sally to cover yourself, You cannot be trusted. You are a problem, a risk, and will eventually try to bring us down. Okay, that's what I kept hearing in my mind. I also uploaded a lesson where I was teaching about like monarchy, oligarchy, and stuff like that, and how when the Lord wants to bring down a nation, that he's going to crack the very foundation. Right? So Sally represents America, or the heart of the nation. Okay, the heart of the nation of the United States of America is the U.S. Constitution. It's the capital. Okay, so if those two things are hit, it will crack. It will cause division and allow room for a dictator or worse to rise up. And so somebody from the inside, that's already inside, is going to cause that crack, that's going to cause that division, and it's going to allow room for these foreign enemies to rise up and take us down. So this person formed an alliance with a foreign enemy thinking it was going to benefit them and it was going to cover them and avoid them from facing the consequences of what they done. But instead, it ended up spinning the block and being returned to them. Woe to them that goes down to Egypt and relies on horses but do not look to the Holy One of Israel. So seeking out foreign alliances with ungodly nations, with nations who don't even acknowledge God, brings judgment. So whoever this person is, whoever this person represents, they committed treason. Okay, they did something that was bad and it's getting ready to hit them like a ton of bricks. Whatever alliance they formed is going to be the reason we are compromised. Even though this person formed an alliance with a ungodly nation, the Lord is still going to use our enemies to execute judgment on the person who betrayed the nation. So we are going to see that. I don't know how that's going to play out in real time, but we are going to see the very people they formed an alliance with is going to turn on them and completely compromise them. And even though they compromised America, they are going to be severely punished. Okay, their death is going to be very slow and painful. Like, this person is probably going to die. So I see a constant theme of warning of watchmen, betrayal and judgment, foreign nations as instruments as judgment, and a call to prayer for leadership. There is going to be an internal betrayal, or there has already been an internal betrayal that is going to lead to the compromise of this nation. And the person who betrayed this nation ultimately is going to fall because of what they did. And their death is going to be slow and painful. I remember in the dream, whoever these people were, when they spun the block and they came back for the husband was looking all confused, and they tied that man up in a chair and they was tormenting him in the worst way. I remember they was pulling teeth out one by one. They wanted to make sure that man suffered, and they wanted to make sure that man was in pain. Wife did not suffer the way the leader did, even though she was completely compromised. So again, a lot of prophetic people such as myself have been warning Americans and other people about what's to come. A lot of people have been greatly deceived as to what's going on. I've been hearing people who are saying the opposite of what God is actually revealing to a lot of his prophets in this hour, and a lot of people are going to be caught off guard. A lot of people do not understand treason has taken place. An internal betrayal in the White House, in politics, has taken place, and somebody has formed an alliance with an ungodly nation. Okay, these people specifically do not acknowledge Jesus Christ. These people specifically do not acknowledge the Hebrew Bible. They don't want anything to do with that. They don't do that. I believe that the foreign nation, they murder people who believe in that stuff. The Lord didn't reveal exactly what nation. He just showed me foreign alliances that do not like him. They do not like Jesus. They do not like God. They do not honor the Bible. They don't even acknowledge it. Okay, so this person is very antichrist in spirit, and because they formed an alliance with this person, it's going to result in us being completely compromised. Now remember, I told you guys that America at some point was going to fall. It is a part of prophecy. We are going to be completely compromised. We are going to have a dictator from another nation that is not American. This is not something that be stopped. Although we can pray and intercede for ourselves and other people in the nations as to how to prepare and what we're supposed to be doing. Anybody who is telling you the opposite of what I'm saying, you need to be raising an eyebrow. Remember, I told you guys that there were people in high positions of power that were trying to manipulate reality, space, and time. Some people who were trying to use military power to force their agenda, and then you had other people who were using things to manipulate people's reality to push their agenda and completely alter timeline. The foreign enemy that this person has secretly formed an alliance with is going to strike the heart of this nation. They are either going to strike the Constitution of the United States, or they are going to storm the Capitol, or they are going to compromise all of the cherished territories in the United States. Now, you guys have been seeing a lot of terrorist attacks in major areas where people were being warned and telling people to stay out of like highly populated areas. You saw that they tried to blow up the French Quarter. We see the LA fires, you know, a city that has been very cherished. We saw somebody who put a cyber truck in front of a building and blew it up. A lot of these foreign alliances are going to lead to the compromise of cherished territories within the U.S. Lord also said that this was a nation that was set apart. We have ideals and core values that are under attack. I told you guys in another prophetic word that the Constitution of the United States is under attack. They are getting ready to do away with it. They are getting ready to alter it in a way where a lot of our rights are going to be stripped from us. And people are going to be so shocked. And a lot of people who just thought things were going to get better or thought things were going to improve are going to be totally confused as to what's going on. Now, the last prophetic word I uploaded where I said there's going to be a mass exodus, things are going to get so bad that people are going to be like, we have no choice but to get up out of here. And some people are not going to want to leave because they're patriotic, they're stubborn, they're entitled, and they're like, no, we need to make it happen here. We need to make this happen in Egypt. We shouldn't leave. We have the right to stay. We need to make change from within. And the Lord is like, I'm giving some of y'all the opportunity to go while you still have the chance before stuff really hits the fan. That's why I told you guys have me for a while. I don't know how much longer they're going to allow us to upload things like this to YouTube, because at some point they will completely censor our free speech and take our videos down. So justice, freedom, and morality is under attack in the United States of America, and it's going to be so open. The prophets have been trying to warn the people. The Lord is showing people how the prophets are eagerly working day and night, pressing people day and night, warning people day and night about what's going on, and people's eyes are still closed. People's hearts are still stone. People are still deceived and not listening to what's going on. And it's not going to be until the tsunami comes that people are going to realize that people like me were telling the truth, and that people who were trying to warn you were right. But by that time, it will be too late. You won't be able to leave. You won't be able to do anything. You will be ill prepared. There are going to be so many things that are hitting us in this nation from this point forward onward into 2027, back to back to back to back to back to back. And whoever this person who is going to be a dictator that's going to take over, these nations that are going to take over are going to be some of the worst and horrific things you have ever seen. Like I said, the US has been spoiled here. We don't know persecution. We haven't even had a taste of it. We do not understand how good we have it here, how protected we were here. Yes, there's a lot of corrupt and a lot of deception here, a lot of genocide and all these things, but in terms of us spreading the gospel, in terms of our faith, in terms of churches, we have been able to openly worship, openly get baptized, and share the gospel without getting killed, without going to prison. We don't even know what that's like, but we're about to. The people this person formed an alliance with is an ungodly antichrist nation. The Lord specifically highlighted in this dream how naive Sally was. She didn't even discern what was coming. She didn't even discern that her husband was a psychopath. She didn't even pick up on it. She didn't even sense it. There were no red flags in her mind. This person was very cunning, so they were able to really mask and act as though they were safe, act as though they were in love, act as though they really cared about this nation, but they were acting. This person had put a hit out on America, and this person had formed an alliance with a foreign enemy in order to take her out. The betrayal of this nation was internal, and I need people to understand that. When you guys begin to see nation rise up and we getting jumped by other nations, I need you guys to know that the betrayal was internal. The betrayal was internal. It happened on the inside, not the outside. You test the spirit behind this word, and you go back to God about who this is about. And this person is going to suffer for what they did. They are not going to be able to get away with it. This person hired or made a deal with a foreign alliance because they were thinking that what they did was never going to get back to them. They thought it was never going to get back to them. They're like, they're not going to trace this back to me. They couldn't do it themselves because they're going to like, okay, I have a motive. People are going to know that I did it. People are going to know that I did it. And the people around him and the people of the nation may not have seen what he did, but God saw it. God saw what this person did, and they are going to have to answer for it. Okay, so Sally and her last name Field also have another meaning and interpretation, because Sally by definition also means sudden attack or charge made by troops against an enemy. So Sally could also represent our defense system that is going to be compromised because of a foreign alliance that somebody on the inside formed. Her last name Field, when you look up the definition of the name Field, there are a lot of definitions, but a couple definitions that stood out to me. It says an open land, area free of woods and buildings, the place where a battle is fought, an area for military exercises and maneuvers. There is going to be a battle that comes to US soil, and a lot of our military personnel are going to be compromised because the people who are supposed to be defending us are not going to see this attack. Sally is for people who are on defense mode. Sally is more so when you are in a fort right? And you see the enemy from the outside and you're on the inside protected by this fort, and then you do a surprise attack whenever you see a threat, okay, when they least expect it. But because they've been compromised and they cannot see the threat, they're going to let this enemy walk right in, and they're going to bring the fight right into our own house. We will not be on defense. We will not be able to properly defend ourselves the way we usually would because of what this person did. A lot of people in the military and a lot of people who work in law enforcement are going to be so upset, and it's going to be very, very difficult for them to walk away. They are also going to be betrayed and feel really upset because of what's going to go on or what they find out about this nation or what happened on the inside. A lot of these people had warnings. A lot of the warnings and the flags were there. Prophets were speaking. People were teaching. People were letting y'all know what was going on. They were letting y'all know that these people were evil, that something corrupt was going on, and people did not listen. And it's not going to be until destruction hits that people start bombing or that these foreign enemies are on U.S. soil in large numbers that people are going to understand that they made the wrong choice. They're going to begin to understand like they had the wrong idea this entire time. In January 2024, the Lord gave me a dream of them storming the Capitol. January 2025, the Lord has given me a dream of how that even came to be, how that is going to be possible. Like I told you guys before, there's going to come a time where we are going to try to make a mass exodus before all these things really pop off. You guys are really going to have to be seeking the Lord in your private time as to what that looks like, if you should leave before or if you're going to wait to the last minute. There's also a show called Handmaid's Tales, right? And in the beginning of that show, they did not see all that stuff that happened to them coming. It was a regular day for them. They were in the office drinking coffee, doing what they casually do. When their bank accounts were no longer available to them, when all the women got fired from their jobs, they couldn't work anymore because the laws had suddenly changed overnight. Okay, people were trying to grab their passports and get out of that land, but they couldn't. And they had military people chasing them, helicopters and stuff trying to take them down. And some of their families were able to make it out, but they were not, okay, because they did not move fast enough. They saw the warnings. They saw the signs of these people trying to enforce a power, enforce an agenda, but they laughed. Same thing happened to the people in Germany in 1933. They laughed at Hitler. They laughed at the Nazis until it wasn't funny anymore. And then even some people rode with Hitler until the very end. It wasn't until Hitler fell or until he disappeared that people began to run away and realize that the gig was up. Some people are going to be loyal to these people until the very end. People are going to choose to be deceived until the very end. And they're going to have to deal with God after they die. I really need God's people to not be deceived by the things that are happening. Do not be deceived. Patterns are patterning. I've taught you guys about counterfeits, how to identify a counterfeit, what that looks like, applying it to the word of God. Not just relying on prophetic voices to tell you who's what. You should not be relying on a prophetic voice to tell you that Kamala is evil. You should be going to the text, the foundation of your faith, which is the word of God and the revelation that comes from the word of God and the Holy Spirit to get you to understand what's happening right now. Because if you do not go to the text and you do not read it for yourself and you're not getting that divine revelation and you're relying on other people who probably have the comprehension of a 4th or 6th grader, people who have not opened up a history book, people who probably were already Republican or Democratic before they even became a prophetic voice, they're going to be biased. You guys are going to have to seek the Lord for yourself. Do not rely on other people to tell you what is and what ain't. It's not going to be until people see all this stuff happening that they're going to realize what was going on this entire time. We have been betrayed from the inside. The Lord needs us to know that. But the person who betrayed us is not going to get away with it, and they are going to die a very slow and painful death because of what they did. The very people that they used to put a hit out on America are going to be the same people who turn on them. Money is not going to be able to get them out of it. Power is not going to be able to get them out of it, because unlike them, those people, they understand the danger of a man that is willing to do something like that to stay in a position of power or save face. No, they were complicit. They still understand a man like that cannot be trusted. A man like that should not be in a position of power. Hypocritical, seemingly, but even the Lord will use foreign nations as instruments as a form of judgment on people who have done things like that. Y'all go back to the Lord, because it's about to get crazy outside. Take every word and every dream that you hear from me back to the Lord in prayer. If he wants to give you more revelation or it's connected to a dream that you may have, always take it back to God in prayer. My name is Abriah Serenity. If you haven't already, click that like and subscribe button. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss any more uploads from me. I love you all with the love of the Lord, and I'll see you guys next time.